Hi, I'm Yvonne Webb of Action Coach Business Coaching.
And I'm Stuart Clark, the Managing Director of Russell & Russell, and we're the co-hosts and sponsors of the Glasgow Business Stories podcast. If you're enjoying Glasgow Business Stories, then why not subscribe to the channel? There's new videos dropping every fortnight with great business stories from great business owners, so we don't want you to miss out.
Victoria, welcome to Glasgow Business Stories. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Great. So look, tell us a bit about you, who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Victoria. I'm the founder and CEO of My Language Connection. So My Language Connection, we're a technical localization agency. A bit about me, I've been running MLC for the past 9 years now, and I started in 2017, and then we've grown since then as a team.
Okay. So what led you to get into that kind of business? Because it's not mainstream stuff, is it?
No, it's not mainstream stuff at all. When I started working in a translation agency before I started MLC, I was like, what is translation? Like, what is this? And I'd applied for a number of jobs. I'd just graduated and I knew I wanted to get into quite like a fast-paced environment. And I really wanted to work in a startup that I could be responsible for helping to shape the team, shape the culture. I didn't know what culture was back then, but shape the culture and shape, the impact and the output that we're having. And I got a call from the recruiter then, and he said, Victoria, I've got you up for a few roles, and there's an interview with a company called Flow Languages at the time. Do you want to go for it? And I was like, tell me more about it. And I just studied management technology and enterprise and got my honours degree, graduated with an entrepreneurship. So I'd just written a dissertation about how a culture and a business can scale and grow, like keeping quite a linear structure where it's people are just like really around a purpose and really around the mission together. And even as they scale and they grow, they still keep that kind of ethos, way of working, client at the heart, that sort of exciting culture and output. So I'd just written that and I thought, this sounds really cool. So I went along and I got offered 2 jobs at the time, one with a recruitment agency with the opportunity to travel and work in sales. I thought that's really cool. And then Flow Languages. And they offered me the job the afternoon. I walked out of the interview and I was like, this seems really cool. And then I got the job, I went in, and it was incredible. Like the first client and project that I got, I was working across 84 languages. It was for a security company, and my client was amazing. She was lovely. And this is before like Teams came about. So, we were on calls with like her global teams. And it was just like so fast paced. And I loved it. I loved what we were doing. I loved the fact that we were speaking to translators in Russia, in Ukraine, and Germany, France, and we were figuring out really sort of complex problems about how we could deliver really high quality translations quite quickly. And yeah, I fell in love with it. I really fell in love with it. So I then left that job because I was sort of still a pure student. I'd funded everything at that point myself. I'd taken myself out of where I lived. So I lived in a really small town. And yeah, I'd sort of taken myself out to study in Glasgow, live in Glasgow. We had a little flat that we had. So I was kind of like still a pure student pretty much when I first graduated. And I was on a really kind of like low salary at the time. And I was like, right, I can't really afford to keep on commuting here, even though targets were great, commission was good, but I was like, this is quite a lot. So I was quite obviously money driven back then, because you had to be like when you've not come from a lot. So you're like, okay, cool. So I left to then come back to Glasgow to work in business development for a technology agency. And I left for I think it was 1 to 2 months. And then my then director was like, we miss you, we want you back. There's a few shifts and changes. We know you wanted to come into management. The opportunity's here if you want to come back. And then at that stage, there was an offer made and I was like, I miss it so much. Like I miss the team, I miss my clients, I miss how fast paced it is, I miss everything about it, because we got to work globally with all of our translators. So yeah, I went back and that was such an incredible journey. Went back as part of the senior management team, responsibility to grow and build the sales team, coach, train, hire, develop a sales team. I was 22, I think, at the time. And that was one of the biggest learning curves that I ever went through so quickly, because essentially we grew, like that agency grew really fast. But then essentially Brexit happened. There was a few things that shifted quite quickly. And in February 2017, that agency then liquidated. So I had no job, and also I had my clients. So there was so much that happened in such a short space of time, which was an incredible lesson to start up MLC. And also there was ways that I could see that we could have really done things better at WWB, it was then called. And I was like, right, if we had really developed personal relationships with our clients, if we really niched down into boutique areas and really honed in on that, if we really, if we didn't grow so fast, then now I've got the experience I have running MLC, I can see that. So I came away and, sort of thought, right, what am I going to do? And I always had quite a nagging desire to start a business. And I thought, can I really do that? Can I really start a business that creates the impact that I want? And had some encouragement. And then we took our clients, obviously spoke to the then directors, took our clients, and then we started taking care of our clients. And we made our first sale and onboarded our first client on the 22nd of March 2017. And they were a municipal foam stream company that were exporting their equipment and their products into overseas markets. And I think it was like 54 languages, like the first project. And then we just started from there, basically, building up the reputation, obviously. So the key thing there was that because WWB was essentially, it shut down, the reputation wasn't great. So we were really kind of building up that credibility, building up that trust within the community with our translators at the time. And yeah, we everything we promised, we over-delivered on to our clients. Everything we promised with our suppliers, our translators, we over-delivered on. And we just kept on building that community. And so that was kind of like the first project, first client. And then the journey continued, and then we started to really niche down into life sciences and medical. And since then, that's become our niche and our area that we take care of, we service really well. And we've got a community now of 1,953 translators globally and a small boutique team in Glasgow.
Sounds amazing. So before we get into, the nuts and bolts of what you do and explore customers and actually, the day-to-day job, I'm interested in why you decided to set up your own business, because most of us would probably look for another job. So help me understand that thought process and where the drive to have your own business came from, because it seems like it's quite a lot to think about at a young age.
Yeah, I thought about this like before I came, and I was like, I'd just been a couple of weeks into 26 when I started. So I suppose you're a bit naive, like as well when you're that.
It's a bit doddle.
Ignorance is bliss. Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. So I think like there was just this, there was a fear. There was definitely like a fear of like, can you do this? Can you do it really well? And that drove me to like over deliver and really do an incredible job that we got known for and we were trusted for. So I do think that it wasn't like we started the business and thought, right, we're going to write up a business plan and this is how we're going to do it. We just knew how to take care of our clients. I knew how to take care of mine. I knew how to build a relationship. I knew how to, if you promise you're going to deliver a translated document and a project for your client, you deliver that, you over deliver. So that's what we started up on, and that's how we did it. So we just did it like block by block, bit by bit, without really thinking about, right, we want to build it into like a £10 million translation agency. This is how we're going to do it. You just took the next step, the next action. But I knew that we could do, a better job in the sense of, I knew that we could get really, we could really focus on that partnership approach and that kind of extended team approach with our clients. And we could really develop strong relationships and deliver to an even higher level for our clients and do an even better job. So that's really what started us off, and we centred around that, and we took it project by project.
And when you're saying we, was it you and someone else that started the business, or was it, are you saying just the team that you'd kind of had that you...
Yeah, so it was me and then a colleague that started up, and so we talked about becoming business partners together, and we worked together side by side for the first year of the business. She ran the projects and the operations and delivery side, and then I ran the commercial relationship sales side of things.
So was that a bit easier because you had someone else taking the plunge with you rather than if it was just by yourself?
Yeah. It was together. Yeah, because we worked in tandem with each other, which was really, really nice. So that was her area, you know, the delivery, the projects, the supplier relationship part. I don't think neither of us were very good at the gross profit margin part. So our accountant told us in 2000, and I think it was April 2018, because we're like, oh great, like we've had such a good month. And he's like, you've not turned a profit. So that allowed us to put the first systems in place where we still have today with our team, where we track gross profit margin per project. We make sure everything's like profitable. So we've got those systems in play. But yes, I do think that was definitely amazing to have that for the first stages, like the first year of business.
And did you have to put money in to start up, or was it a case of just working from home and sort of building it as you went?
Yeah, so it was just like a case of working from home and building it as we went. What we did was we invoiced 50% upfront for the project to then ensure that we had cash flow. Yeah. And so that's how we grew. It was very organically. So as you can imagine, you really have to cultivate that trust, because you're a new brand, you're a new business. Nobody knew then who we were. They knew WWB, but they didn't know who we were at that stage. We were Strategic Translations, which I thought was a really cool name when we first started up, because it was all about that strategic partnerships for businesses that want to globalise. C and I sat down and looked at then, does that really encapsulate that we do interpretation, that we do design, that we do localisation, that we do consultancy? So we rebranded as My Language Connection. I think that was like the first summer or second summer that we were trading. So yeah, to answer your question, we've purely been bootstrapped and grown commercially through relationships and through trust.
And when you invoiced up front, then was that quite scary having to do that?
Yeah.
But it was also a kind of necessity, because you're like, we can't afford to do this any other way.
100%, yeah. And we were so small and we weren't known. So things like Funding Circle won't fund you at that stage. You have to have 2 years of accounts of trading. So that's the biggest challenge, or was the biggest challenge then, is like, you're young, you don't have that credibility yet. You don't necessarily have that reputation yet. You haven't built up 2 years of trading. So how do you fund it? You've got clients that need the projects, need the work doing. They want you to do it, and deliver it. So that was a necessity to ensure that we had the right amount of cash flow in the business to pay our translators, to ensure that the work got delivered to the quality standard required.
I imagine it stood you in good stead going forward and to actually have, because it's harder to go from billing it and completion to then starting to bill up front, whereas if you've had that in place from the start, it's almost...
Yeah.
Cash flow it helps a lot.
Yeah, very much so. It does. But we went through different periods. Like, we've not been as, I suppose, strict in terms of like our payment terms. Like, when we started to build up a base of business and build up cash in bank, we were a bit more lenient with payment terms and such likes there, which again comes with its own challenges when you start to have different, I suppose, rules or different ways that you invoice with different types of clients. And you start to look at different payment terms, because there's different industries that we took care of initially. So construction engineering, they are, they are about 60 to 90 days. We were working with, if you look at military and defence or aviation, that can be up to 120 days. So payment terms and things. So we started to look at ways in which we could, when we started to build up like that cash cushion and profitability, like how we could be a bit more flexible and balance that off between onboarding contracts and taking care of clients for those types of contracts, versus like cash and bank and cash flow and such likes there.
So going from being an employee in senior management team to then running your own business, was the financial aspect of running the business the biggest thing you had to learn?
One of the biggest things, yeah. I think the biggest thing that you learn is people and relationships, leadership, people management, culture. I think I'm still learning that 110%. You set the culture, like as the leader or as the like a leadership team, that's you set the culture. You've got a massive responsibility in how the business is shaped, how the team operates, how they work, how they feel. Then ultimately how your clients feel. So I would say the biggest lesson is culture and relationships and people. But I think if you just like really take the principles of like, how would I want to experience a service? Like, how would I want to be, how would I want to feel? Like if I'm dealing with like a really high-end premium brand, a brand that really cares, how do I want to feel? How do I want to be taken care of? If I've got deadlines to meet, I want to feel like my supplier, my partners, and they're with me and we're in it together. Like I've always really valued like that partnership approach. I didn't realize like how difficult that is to find and like partners and team and people, in the sense of like, you really have to like create that environment that's like the standard and that's like how you want to work as that kind of like partnership approach, like you're in it together. We've done like some really big projects with some really quite fast moving deadlines, and they are the things like I remember so vividly, and that really, I suppose, give me joy in the sense of thinking back about how we were all in it together as like a smaller team, how we were like working together to the point of like wake up at 6 a.m. and say, hey, have you got this file and who's doing this part and how are we getting this time in, like through to like 10 o'clock. And, that's not a regular occurrence in the agency, but I would say like sometimes that's been required to deliver to deadlines, and it's how a team band together. And I've always really valued that kind of like all in it together, all in the trenches together, that partnership approach with partners, with suppliers, with team. So yeah,
it came through
the finance part.
And the finance part.
The finance part is a big part.
It came through when you were describing the startup. It almost felt to me like the product was secondary, and it's almost like how you treat people is first, or the experience you give people is first, and that's what's shining through now. How much of that was just natural to you, and how much did you have to learn?
I had to learn a lot. With that. Still learning. And I would say that you really, I think like the key thing is like treat people the way you want to be treated. And then also I would say like when you're an employee and when you're like more operationally focused, you're just focused on the work. Like you're focused on the technical aspect of the work. You're focused on the output of the work. But when you become like an owner of a company and you're part of leadership and you're part of shaping the culture, it's more so about not just the work, it's about how your people are working together, like interdependently with each other to achieve and create an outcome. And you're doing that, you might be like frantic in the back end. It's like the swan analogy. Some of my guys talk about that. Is like you can be paddling frantically underneath the water, but the swan has to have its elegant head. So that's how your clients have to feel. You want them to feel like they are number one. You want them to feel like it's a seamless experience. They've got that quality translation. They're able to drive their products to market fast. They're able to get that brand awareness, but they don't want to feel the complexity of what's going on behind the scenes. So your job is to not just focus on the technical work, but how is everybody working together independently to make that happen? So it's a seamless experience.
Yeah. So help us understand the specialism of what you do, because in the age of AI, all the rest, Google Translate, people might be thinking, well, why don't you just chuck it into the computer and see what it comes out with? So what's the difference between that and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So we were chatting about that earlier. And I would say since I started in the industry, so I've been in the industry now for, goodness, about well over a decade, so maybe like 12 years plus. And since then we started, it was like, our clients were like, well, why can't I just use Google Translate to do this? Like, why do I need an interpreter that I'm going to pay like a day rate for? And just like what we were saying earlier, it's like, one of my clients was opening quite a big store, shall we say, in one of the airports in Osaka in Japan. And so that was like weeks of meetings and negotiations and discussions around the contract. You can't put that into Google Translate and achieve then a successful partnership outcome of opening up that store to the deadlines that they wanted to do. There's so much more than just the translation part. There's the culture part. There's the communication part. There's so much involved in designing an output to achieve an objective, like opening a store or driving a medical device into 64 markets. It's not just, let me put that into Google Translate. There's complexity of localization workflows. You know, you've got global teams and marketing and regulatory and legal all liaising with each other about, you know, a set of documents before it's even reaching us, for example. And then it's about how you translate that document from source, as we call it, so English into Japanese, for example, into target, and really understand who the end audience is. You know, if obviously Osaka, opening up a store in Japan, that's one example. Another example is that, like with our clients that are launching medical devices into market, if you think about it, so if you've got diabetes, you know, the material that you're using for the device that's going to monitor your blood sugar levels, it's all about that user experience and that patient experience. The material that they're using then and how to use that device in a way that works for them really has to consider the patient. It has to think about how you're tailoring that to the end audience, all the while keeping compliant to the likes of MDR, IVDR, the different regulations that we're translating to. You can't just put that into AI or Google Translate and then expect an output that really helps a patient understand how to use that to improve the quality of their lives into Japanese, for example. And then there's the consideration of, if we are translating a marketing campaign for the US, how is that going to land in Estonia? Is that going to be perceived in the same way? Is it going to be perceived motivational, or is it going to be passive aggressive? There's different considerations and local knowledge that then is put into play. Yes, we could argue that, you know, agentive and generative AI could get there. It's a large language learning model. But what I would honestly say is you're not going to replace the judgment part. It's the judgment part of years of translating that subject matter and really thinking about the patient and how to localize that is the key part that will be really challenging to replicate. So AI and Google Translate, use it as a tool, use it as the gist of the message and such likes there, but it shouldn't be part of a strategy. It shouldn't be part of like the actual output. You know, you were talking about this earlier. It's like, as a leader, I use it every day. And it's like almost like my little business partner, but I wouldn't blindly follow what it's saying, because there's so much complexity in a business and team relationships and client relationships that only real judgment can deliver on, if that makes sense. So I would say that AI is a wonderful tool, and we're using it on a daily basis to reduce like the admin side of things, like the stuff that I don't want my people working on, because I want them to work on who are we creating an output for? What purpose are we working to deliver on? Like, how are we doing that for our client, and how are we using it to enhance the experience? But it shouldn't be used as the actual strategy or the tool, for example. It can be used as part of it, part of a well-designed human process, but it shouldn't replace it. So that's basically, yeah, we've always got that, I would say. Like, why should I use, you know, MLC, or why should we go, you know, invest in this versus using Google Translate or AI? And the answer is like, it's the output, it's the purpose.
I think that, you know, the type of work you're doing, the type of areas that you're working in, that's obviously helped future-proof the business a bit. And was that by design or just by luck?
In terms of like using...
Well, in terms of like, you decided to niche into life sciences and medical and things like that, was that just because those are the types of clients you like working with? Or was it actually thought longer term, you know, were you thinking about what if something like AI comes in, or was it just by chance?
It was by design. Like, we definitely were intentional about that.
Yeah.
That's because of the lessons like WWB, because we were I suppose like we just catered to a range of different clients and industries and quite a wide range.
Can't be everything to everyone.
Can't be everything to everyone. So we wanted to really boutique and partner and really speak the language. And medical device and pharma was the area that we started to really niche down on. MDR and IVDR came into play as well, which meant legally that all medical device companies that were distributing their devices into market, into the EU markets, they legally then had to have everything certified and professionally translated for the end user to use the instructions for use, for example. So that became like a big area with which we started to grow in quite quickly during COVID and just before COVID in 2019.
And I guess it's quite high value as well, so it's a lot easier to justify, whereas again there's other areas where they might be like, oh, why can't we just do that and translate because it's not as highly regulated or it doesn't really matter in the output, whereas this is key.
It's patient safety. It's patient safety at the end of the day. So like regulated material is key in ensuring that it's translated accurately, it's compliant to a certain level, it's certified. So because of the regulations that surround it. So that's definitely a key focus.
Yeah.
And was COVID good for business or bad for business?
Really good for business. It was hard, I would say, because a lot of my team are quite like they enjoy being together. I'm definitely someone that really enjoys being in with the team, like being part of that community. So I think we definitely managed in the sense of like everybody was working from home for a period of time, and we've not gone back completely into the office. We've got a hybrid model, and that works quite well with the team and works quite well with us together, and also for talent, because my industries, the kind of key players are in the US and such like. So there's, from a talent point of view, it's good to have that global focus. But yeah, it was good for business in the sense of like we grew somewhere, it was considerable. It was up to, I think, under 100% we grew during COVID, because we just started to position with a few of our clients, medical device clients in 2019 around MDR, and our marketing campaigns were reflecting that. And we were doing more work within medical device. And it was quite fun. It was fun. And then COVID came about, and all of the red tape around like budget constraints for public sector, everything there was kind of lifted. And it was just a case of, we need to move this to market quickly. We need to get our IFUs out. We need to get this marketing campaign out. We need to move. We were the partner to the NHS England through our client Magpie, which are a behavioural change agency, and we were brought in to do all the localisation work for the north of Yorkshire, and so we were brought in to do all of that, and we covered about 15 languages, and it was around the barriers to trust with the vaccine, with track and trace, and so we were translating and localising all of the guidelines as they changed. During that period. Which
They changed quite a lot.
They changed. If you remember that, there was like a Christmas period. I can't remember the exact year. And there was a Christmas period where it was changing all the time. And one of my subcontractors, our then head of projects, she was like having to, ensure that our translators were ready. They were ready to go react really quickly to the changing guidelines to make sure all the digital assets were up to date. It was a really successful campaign. It was massive. It was quite a sizable campaign. There was a lot of people involved, and our client at the end of it did a bit of a workshop where they started to look at what was the engagement level, and the engagement level with non-English speaking communities was 50% higher than English speaking communities, with all the localisation and engagement and impact work that we did for that. So it was good period for business. We grew quite quickly, and that was excellent. Although, as you know, it's when you start to grow quite quickly at different periods, and it's perhaps not as planned out, that there's different challenges and such likes that you work through that as well, to ensure that you are providing same level of service, same level of quality and care. So yeah, it was a good period for business. It was I think everybody feels like that was a bit of a fever dream, wasn't it? In the sense of,
Yeah, you now think, did that actually happen?
yeah, did that happen? And what year was that? Like, how you just remember it in terms of like different events. I was saying this to the team yesterday actually, because we do like a team building day out normally every year, and we go to Cameron House. So we or like Lodge in the Lock, or we do like we go fun places basically, and we do a day where it's, you know, thinking about connecting with our clients. So we'll do like a case study, and we'll say like, what's an MLCer's heart? What's an MLCer's head? And we'll get the team to like come out of the day to day and really think about it and connect to like the mission, the strategy, like for the year ahead, shall we say, like what are we in business to do here? And so we do like a range of different like exercises, and we'll try and do it to look at like what's been the kind of key challenge that's come up. So we did like conflict modelling like in last year's, where like everybody had a bit of a survey to do to then understand like what's their communication style, how do they prefer to be communicated with, how do they deal with conflict and such likes there. When I've got two different teams, which I've got our sales relationship management team and our client success project delivery team, it's about, our team's actually really good at this, like our company's good at this. They communicate really well together, but there can be challenges, can't there, like with any sort of like sales team and operational team. So we'll look at then what's the kind of key challenges that have come up. Has it been, you know, client service? Has it been conflict management, etc.? And we'll put in different models and different workshops, and the team will come together. Anyway, we were talking about COVID together yesterday, and because we've been really, really quite busy this month. We said, oh, do you remember that? Because we took everybody to Arran, and there's like pictures of everybody with face masks on the way to Arran. And we'd had a really, really good month that month. So everybody was like celebrating, and we took everybody to Auchrane Resort, and everybody had like nice cocktails and like spa treatments and things like that. And just that was after we did like the workshops and the sessions and planning around strategy. So we've always been really quite good and focused at celebrating the wins and really helping our team feel part of a team together. So yeah, COVID was a funny time.
So you've looked at different ways of growing the business. Can you tell us a bit about what you've learned from that?
Loads. So definitely the past year has been quite an education, because we've been looking at like the different ways in which we can grow the business strategically and think about what's our next stages of growth. Is that venture capital? Is that investment? What does that mean for the business? What shape would the business require to be to then go for venture capital to help us fund our next phases of growth through tech development, internationalization? We're really wanting to, we've got a small office in Dubai. We're wanting to grow that out a little bit further. We want to really develop our tech team, our tech capability. We've developed our own AI-enabled localization software that helps us reduce that time to market for our medical device and pharma clients. And we want to, you know, push that forward. So we started to look at what capabilities, what skills, what level of investment do we need? How much can we do it ourselves by bootstrapping? And how much do we need external investment? So over the past year, we went out and we started to look at ways in which would support those next phases of growth. So M&A, venture capital, what's going to be the best model for us to work to achieve those goals, to continue to expand our footprint. And that's been quite a lesson over the past year, basically. And we're still in the process of looking at what are those next phases and what's that going to look like. So yeah, that's been an education. That's posed different challenges that I wouldn't have or hadn't foreseen as a leader. Whilst we focus on that process, and then we've just been really focused on what's going to be that best fit for the next phases and next stages.
And so, last 9 years, what's your key learnings then for the last 9 years?
The last 9 years, key learnings would be that relationships are everything. So team relationships, client relationships, supplier relationships should be at the heart of absolutely everything. Systems and processes are definitely key. And it's about not being afraid to say, right, actually, do you know, we've outgrown this system, this process, this way of working, and be courageous enough to redesign things to ensure that you're still able to adapt, innovate, redesign your business model to continue to achieve and create the same outputs. Definitely AI, we all require to redesign our businesses to a certain degree, all of us. So how are we doing that? How are we doing it in a way that doesn't, really cut into the culture too much and ensure we've got that output? Like, how are we doing that? I think that's a big question and challenge just now for a lot of different leaders. So we're adapting. As I say, there's different ways that we're using it. We've integrated it into workflows. We've integrated it into our software with purely looking at, right, how do we make this simpler? How do we make this faster for our clients? Like, how do we deliver that quicker? How can we use AI? So that they are innovating, adapting, not also being afraid to say, do you know what I'd said a few years ago, that was the best way of working at the time with the information that we had. It's now changed. So we're going to change that, and we're going to redesign that. And actually, it's okay to say, it's not wrong. Like, you made the best decision at the time with the data that you had, but it's okay to say, actually, we're going to change direction just now to then make sure that we've still got our medical device, pharma clients at the heart of all that we do. High quality translation is what we do within regulated environments, but the way we're going to do it is going to be different. So it's okay to do that, and it's okay to redesign processes. You should always be designing processes like with an output in mind that's going to make things simpler, easier, faster for your clients, and really thinking about your team at the heart of that. Like, how will that impact them? How will that make them feel? Will they be able to produce more work and not be bogged down in a load of like admin tasks that don't use their talents and abilities to really to the best of their ability? So learn that, people at the heart of everything. Design your processes around it. Don't be afraid to redesign, particularly in such an innovative, advanced, fast-paced age. And just every day is pretty much a school day for a business leader. It really is, particularly just now. As I say, going out and starting to look at what's our next phases of growth going to entail. Like, what is the best suitability for us? What does our shape look like? What is it eligible for, or what's going to support us? There's the balancing act with that. So I would say it's just like every day is a school day. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and really kind of roll up your sleeves. And even when it's hard and it's tough, which we've definitely been through tough times over the past year, I would say just get up and get on with it and take that next step and take that action.
When you're talking about change and changing direction and stuff like that, how much easier or harder do you think that's been because you've got your mission and your culture and your purpose and things like that? Do you know, because that's front and center, does it then make it easier to go, actually, the way we do things is just the mechanics. We can change that as long as the relationship's the focus. Has that made it easier to implement change? Or
100%. If we all know that this change, which is uncomfortable for everyone, is still around, and it's not still around, but it's centered around that purpose and what we're doing as a company, because a company is just a group of people. Like, it's just a group of people with a mission to make things better. If we just think about it like that and think, all right, okay, it can be, there's a lot of change just now, that becomes really like, okay, well, cool, that's okay, because actually, even with the pain of change, we know that that is our purpose and that's what we're doing. So the mechanics just change essentially to redesign to work to that purpose. So yeah.
You're still heading for the same North Star.
Heading for the same North Star.
Yeah.
Just different way of doing it. Different route. Yeah.
And if you look at the results, we've got a group of people in Glasgow, clear on their mission, wanting to deliver great customer service, who are attracting global brands. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
It's amazing.
So you might have articulated it already, but we always finish off by saying, what's your guiding principle in business for anyone that's listening?
Yeah. So guiding principle in business is definitely making things really simple, easy, an incredible experience for your clients, and thinking about how all those interdependencies and how everybody in your team work together to make that really simple and joyful. And it's all about experience at the end of the day and how you make people feel. So our guiding principle is putting that at the heart of everything that we do for clients, team, people. And definitely we don't always get it right, but that's our guiding principle and mission and what we work around.
Well done on what you've achieved so far. It's
Thank
great
you.
stuff, and we wish you all the best for the future and look forward to seeing what happens next.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you.